But all our triumphs be for God's the blood and sweat and toil, for ne'er were we a melting pot, for ours is blood and soil. For ours is blood and soil, my sons, for ours is blood and soil, that our great race ne'er be replaced, for ours is blood and soil. We bear the torch of Europe still, our hearts with duty loyal. No more the blood of brothers spill, for ours is blood and soil. For ours is blood and soil, my sons, for ours is blood and soil, that our great race ne'er be erased, for ours is blood and soil. That we should flourish in our land, ne'er from our fight recoil. Come, fathers, brothers, hand in hand, for ours is blood and soil. For ours is blood and soil, my sons, for ours is blood and soil, that our great race ne'er be disgraced, for ours is blood and soil.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Chris Mitchell podcast. Hope everyone watching the show is having a great weekend. We've got a great guest, fantastic guest. What a great song that is, Blood and Soil. Brilliant song. Let's head over to our guest. Please introduce yourself and how have you been?
Hi Chris, I hope you're well. Yep, I'm Bubba Kate Paris. Some of you may know me as that, aka Katie Elizabeth Fanning. I'm a little bit tired, got a bit of a cold at the moment, but apart from that, I'm doing really well. Everything's going to plan at this stage.
Excellent to hear. So obviously, how's your granddad first and foremost?
Oh gosh, yeah. It's one of those things, isn't it? People get old and they start to lose their abilities somewhat. One of my posts recently about families looking after wider families was sort of inspired by that, because you know, my granddad's lucky enough to have quite a large family around him. So despite the fact that he's incredibly elderly and unable to take care of himself at this stage, he's lucky enough to have family around him. But even then, there are, you know, family members that like to put people into care because it's quite difficult to look after somebody that's losing their memory somewhat. But I don't agree with the whole putting them in care, and there seems to be an awful lot of Africans working in care that don't like our elderly very much, and to take them out of their home that they lived in for years, I think is kind of cruel, and put them around a load of foreign strangers. So I think we need to start concentrating on wider families somewhat.
Absolutely agree, man. Like just putting them in a home just wrong. Like
sometimes it is necessary for medical reasons.
With just strangers that they've only just met, or
I took him cake yesterday. I baked a big chocolate cake. He likes cake and he likes lamb, but apart from that, he doesn't like to eat too much. So I've started regularly slow cooking lamb hot pots and shepherd's pies and taking them around and baking him chocolate cake.
How old is he?
It's 94. Be 95.
94, man. 94. That's some good news, isn't it?
Yeah, the people in my family live to a good ripe old age.
That's good to hear. Good to hear. My mum is now out of hospital. She had a successful liver transplant, so yeah, all good.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that.
Must always protect your family. They're only here once, and you only get one family. So.
Oh, it's nice to hear that you're a dedicated and caring son there, Chris.
Absolutely, absolutely. On the good stuff today, Pepsi, no alcohol.
I'm drinking lemon water.
So yeah, moving on. Like, what's the latest with you? Any news on the court case? And maybe anyone that's watching that don't really know what's going on, if you want to give a quick refresh on why you're attending court at some point.
So I'm currently in the midst of litigation against my former university and their law school for discrimination against me as a white student. In fact, it's direct discrimination, harassment, victimization, discrimination of philosophical and factual beliefs under the Granger versus Nicholson case law, and obviously obstructing my right to freedom of expression. So underneath the Equality Act and obviously the Human Rights Act of 1998 also comes underneath the Education Act. I'm well, a good way through this part of the litigation. We've gone through.
Before we move on, sorry, what did they actually do, like in terms of harassment? What did they actually?
Okay. So, well, I complained about all the Afrocentric propaganda that we were being bombarded with within the initial weeks of me starting at university. It was Black History Month, you see, so there was all these proclamations of support for Black Lives Matter, you know, fists up in the air, talking about white privilege, systemic racism, all of this. And I find that racial harassment. You know, when I'm seeing consistent, inaccurate disseminations of the attributes of the white race, you know, being, you know, portrayed in a negative manner, that is a form of racial harassment. When you're talking about how we need to abolish whiteness, I mean, that's talking about the eradication of my race, and yet I'm not supposed to feel intimidated, alarmed, or disgusted by that.
In our own country as well, do you know?
In our own country, yes.
It's absolutely nothing. Fair enough. If you want to teach that, go to Africa and teach that kind of boiled crap.
We shouldn't be teaching that nonsense anywhere because it's not factual.
Not that. But they can do it in their own country. They can teach their crap.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't be teaching anything in Africa, would they? Without our sustenance, they'd be running around, you know, building mud huts and chucking spears at each other in no time without white people funding them and supplying them with our inventive genius.
Can't say things like that's racist.
What
is supremacist?
I'm a realist. That's what I am. I'm a realist. I care about facts, and that it's factual that, you know, Black people didn't really manage to advance much further than the Stone Age in their own right. When we've gone and colonized these countries, we have increased their living standards exponentially from what they had previously. Their life expectancies went up. We gifted them with all the inventions and philosophy and structures that white man had come up with, and we gave them functioning and prosperous societies to be part of. And then when we left, they quickly deteriorated into violent, ungovernable shitholes where they can't even manage to master basic agriculture to feed their people. So I don't think that my observations are racist. I think they're just correct.
I agree. I mean, well, obviously we'll go back onto the court case, but just while we're on the subject of colonisation, this is the same. I was on a debate panel last week. I think it was like 3 Muslims, one, you know, typical self-hating white that loves multiculturalism, and an African, and they were like, look, like England's getting what they deserve. Like, you deserve to be a minority in your homeland because of you colonising the world.
Have you not noticed that nations that were part of the British Empire compared to neighbouring nations of similar demographics and similar sort of natural resource abilities, the ones that were part of the British Empire are much more prosperous and safe than the ones that were not? I think that they forget what we have gifted them with, although they do seem to now believe that Black people invented and built everything in the white Western world. And
what are you saying? Diversity didn't build Britain?
No, apparently we just appeared from nowhere. We were primitive savages that just appeared magically out of the sky and then oppressed everybody, even though we are significantly inferior. That is what the narrative is now. The people who originally were the Britons were Black people. The white people just came along and history. They built the pyramids, Stonehenge. They were the Vikings.
It's just absolutely madness.
It is.
It's just like, again, like I said on this debate last week, I said, like, you're criticising England so much and you hate us so much. Why live here? Like, imagine just moving to Pakistan and just moaning about Pakistan. It's like, well,
they're not here.
Simple solution, just go back to where you live, where you're from.
They're not here as refugees. I mean, you've seen the speech by Wesley, haven't you?
We will be playing that. Surely that is on the menu. Fantastic work. We will be playing that very shortly.
That's something that's really fundamental. You know, these are not refugees. Where are they running from? I mean, how many Pakistanis, Muslim Pakistanis, do we have in Britain? Muslims are not being persecuted in Pakistan, are they? So why do we have so many of them living here? Why do they have British passports? Why are they, if they're refugees, why are they able to go there on holiday and send their kids there to go get married to their uncles and such? It's like nobody seems to question it. It's like, oh, these people need to be here, and you're a racist if you say otherwise. Why do they need to be here? That should be the question. Why are they coming here? And for a lot of them, it is vengeance. They blame us for a lot of the wars and a lot of the misfortune that has befallen them, mostly due to the Jewish-run governments that we're also being subjected to. Like, the false wars in Iraq, the Twin Towers, they brought that down. They blamed it on the Muslims, and then they've used that to invade the Muslim world, bomb them into oblivion, and then say, hey, come and invade the West, and let them come in droves. They incentivize hate towards us. They teach the Africans that we're the master slavers and we've done all of these evils and colonization was evil. They are turning the entire world against us because their main objective is to genocide the white race. But it's not like the other peoples of the world have been treated much better. They're just being utilized as tools for our destruction. But they have as much of a grievance with these globalist Marxists, these Jews, as we do.
Yeah, well, they're not refugees because the moment they're in a safe country, that title's taken away. They're economic migrants. They're the ones that come on the boats. Yeah, and how many videos have we seen when they're on the boats and they're bragging about coming and fancy? They've all got mobile phones, top quality. They're not economic migrants, and they're all fighting age men as well. I still wouldn't have that much sympathy, but if it was actual families, then
genuine refugees, when they were sending genuine Ukrainians, women and children, not their men. Their men were there, fighting the wars. When they were sending women and children who were genuine Ukrainians, not Africans calling themselves Ukrainians, I think that, that's fair enough because they're not going to want to settle here.
Back home.
As soon as it's safe for them to be returned, they should be returned.
Yeah,
the major issue is not so much the amount of people that are coming in. I mean, if these people were not able to access our democratic systems, if they weren't able to influence our governments, if they weren't given priority in every area of life, like housing, have you seen it? They're going to be now building specific housing estates for refugees, housing estates for Africans. We've got a housing crisis in the United Kingdom. People aren't able to pay their bills. People aren't able to afford mortgages. The next generation's got no hope of being able to afford houses. And yet we're having our government taxing our people to purchase and build houses for foreign hostile invaders. And that's what they truly are. They're not refugees. They're not even immigrants. These are people who truly hate us, who are here to plunder our land and take from us what is rightfully ours, our identity, our homeland, our children's futures, everything. That's why when people say, oh, I know this person from whatever country, and they seem all right, some of them are okay, just by nature of breaking into our land and stealing our identity is a hostile act, even if they're acting friendly towards you, because they show no care for your existence or what's rightfully yours. Somebody broke into your home and stole your stuff, but was very nice to you about it. Would that be okay? Exactly. It's the same thing. I don't care how nice any of these single immigrants or, foreign hostile invading peoples are, is because they broke into my home and taken what's rightfully ours, my people's. So no matter how much they might protest that they're friendly and they just want to integrate into our society, their actions speak otherwise. They just want us to be okay with them taking what is rightfully ours. They want us to be fine with that. And I'm not.
Absolutely. Just to go back to the housing crisis, I mean, I went many years ago, I was looking after my nan who had cancer at the time, obviously passed away. May she rest in peace. I applied, that house was in the family name for about 30 to 35 years. Yeah? I applied to have that house and the council said no. And literally, if I weren't working, could afford my own place at the time, they would have pushed me on the street. They literally gave me no council home. I had to go private renting. And then there meant to be a massive list for the houses.
You're a white straight male, Chris. You don't get any priority. You're back of the housing list.
They moved a Syrian family into that property. Yeah? Done it all up. It looks completely different now. Yeah, we'd been banging on the council door. Look, we need this sorting. We need X, Y, Z sorting to the house. Nothing ever got done. Get a Syrian family after 1 year being in the country, and then literally an article came out within weeks that British families were having, like with children as well, having to stay in B&Bs and hotels because there's not enough houses. And then we were on a massive waiting list. Some of them were staying in a hotel or B&B for like 2-3 years. Well, they could have had that bloody house. I wouldn't have minded as much if you gave that my nan's council home to a British family.
Actual British family.
I'd have been more accepted of that, but it really pissed me off giving it to some Syrian family. One of the claims is about, the house is too big for just one person. It's true, but they didn't put me in like a 1-bed flat. I had to go and get a flat myself. But the family, it was like just a wife, a husband, and 1 baby in a 3-bedroom house. Could have used that for a British family that's got 2 or 3 kids that's stuck in these B&Bs.
I read an article about a woman with 3 children, one of them with cancer, was living in a 1-room B&B for months on end. Child with cancer, and they can't find her a home. Oh, but foreign hostile invaders that have come over on dinghies. You've got Indian students now that just can't be bothered to pay the university fees, so they come over on dinghies, claim refugee status, and get it all for free, so they don't have to pay for it. I mean, are we supposed to believe that the Albanian coke dealers are refugees? I mean, it's like anybody who's foreign who enters our country is now being labeled a refugee, regardless of where they came from, the fact that they're not being persecuted, the fact that they're fucking criminals, terrorists. Some of these have been rapists, murderers. Some of them have even admitted to being military trained operatives. And yet we're supposed to not be concerned about these people being placed up and down our countries at our expense in 4- and 5-star hotels. They make out people that are protesting in Ireland and in Liverpool out to be far-right extremists. They're importing a foreign hostile force that are targeting children. I mean, we've already had up to 1 million white British children raped. How many more are we supposed to tolerate? Exactly. And yet they call us the extremists. Our people are being raped, murdered, displaced, and extorted by a foreign hostile population with the full facilitation of our state. And yet we're made out to be extremists for standing up against it.
Look, the worst thing that we've done, and I'm not even sure it was any of us. It seems like a setup. Was Liverpool last Friday night? Was it? And the police van was on fire. Like,
yeah,
that's the worst we've done after all the shit.
I don't think that was any of our people. I mean, if you've been to some of these protests, some of our lot, they actually keep an eye on who attends. And you'll get entities that no one really knows. It tends to be in the larger sort of protests or the ones that are a bit more chaotic. And sometimes they have an earpiece in. And these are officers that are there in plain clothes. And they go to try and incite aggression and, things that are going to get people in trouble. Now, that van apparently was parked driven towards the protesters and then abandoned, with the doors open. I think that even with how heated up people were, I don't think that they would set the van alight. I honestly think that it's quite possible, not saying that this definitely happened, but it's a possibility that the police set that on fire themselves. They had one amongst them in plain clothes in the middle of the protesters. Let's set this on fire, because then we can claim that these protesters are violent and will be allowed to shut down any further protests. That's why they've done it. That's my theory. Obviously, I have no evidence, but I
think it's
police setting fire to their own vehicle and then claiming that it was the protesters to try and get an ability to shut down future protests. They blamed it on PA, didn't they? And I saw this. Oh my gosh, the story of James and what that. He had these officers going rogue, coming around to his house, putting him on curfew.
Absolutely. I'm not a big fan of PA, but I do obviously they got publicity, which they probably could have got some sign-ups out there. But I think it was a bit harsh to put all the blame on them, to be honest. And well, I think there was only one in attendance. I don't know, maybe there was a couple of us, but it only seems to be the Rev there attending. And I forgot to message him yesterday. I was going to message him at 7:00. So I hope you're behaving, mate, and inside your house. On
your Marxist imposed imaginary curfew. I mean, I did find it funny, one of the clips they used, because somebody made him laugh at the protest, just as he was he was saying a lot on camera. But they got a clip just where he's laughing and there is the van burning in the background.
Oh,
And they used that as like the image that they want to use. And I was like, okay, they really did capture a good one there, to be fair.
yeah.
I know it's completely out of context, but I did like it.
Where's his name? Where's his? I think he put the picture when that speech which we're playing a bit. He was pointing, and they were trying to say, like the MP was just saying he was doing the Nazi salute or something, or Roman salute.
You can't point anymore, or you can't see the hand.
Yeah.
Maybe you point with like all your hand that way.
How tall's Hitler, and where does he come from?
Sorry.
How tall is Hitler, and where does he come from? Hitler's this tall and lives over there. It's a joke. It's a joke.
Okay. No, you when you speak fast, sometimes you sound like you've got a slightly Irish accent. I don't know why. I sometimes struggle with the strong accents. The Scottish ones, the Irish ones, and the Liverpudlian ones. If you speak very quickly, I'm like, what was that?
I said, how tall is Hitler and where does he come from? And I said, he's that tall and lives over there.
Okay. I've not heard that one before.
Sorry. Ruined the mood now. And all right, where was it? Back onto the court case.
Yeah. So I've had a number of hearings. The last hearing that I had was an appeal hearing because there was an item of my claims that was struck out at a previous hearing. I mean, I couldn't forward that to a trial. I couldn't proceed with it. And I believed that striking it out was an error in law. And I successfully argued that it's now reinstated into my particulars of claim. I tried to argue about the civil procedure rules in themselves and some of the orders of the judge on the 30th of June, actually creating an obstruction to my common law right to access to justice, which is a constitutional right, which can't be undermined by any judge, any politician, any legislation that includes the civil procedure rules, unless it specifically states within it that it has the authority to undermine the king's citizens' rights to access to justice, and the civil procedure rules do not. But as we've seen with many people who are trying to bring forward cases, the main obstruction is cost. You know, the cost of litigation is quite heavy. I mean, and if you were to lose, the threat of, you know, your property possibly becoming seized is a real worry for people. But, you know, even being able to submit basic claims, I mean, if you're working full time, you're not going to get any sort of legal aid. Affording barristers, solicitors, the filing fees is incredibly expensive. So this means that the majority of the king's citizens cannot really access their legal rights. Now, with myself, I've been hit with a cost order because I needed to amend my particulars of claim just slightly. Not sure whether it was absolutely necessary, but I wished to, and I wasn't aware that I would certainly have to pay the cost of that. So now I'm being hit with a cost order. We're going to have cost hearings, cost management and case management hearings in the near future. I'm actually anticipating a letter to come from the court in the next few days with a questionnaire. So I've been attempting to work out my own costs because I'm going to be awarded costs of my successful appeal. Once we've got through these cost hearings and the case management hearings, I will know whether I'm going to have to crowdfund to cover any of these costs. Because
you probably will have to. Man, it's going to cost a fortune.
Well, I'm hoping I can manage this myself. I don't like having to go to anybody for assistance with things, but occasionally it's going to be necessary. I might need to crowdfund a few thousand, two to 5,000, I think I'm estimating, and that's if I don't manage to argue down some of their costs, or I don't know. I've not fully calculated mine yet. Mine are going to be quite high.
Do you really think? I mean, like with how corrupt it is, do you really? Because I'm just quite negative about my court case and everyone's court cases that go, because I just think I just can't see us winning. Like, I just can't. I always think, you know, I'm going to go not guilty as well, but I just think I can't see the headlines be like with a white male winning a court case against drag queens, or particularly your one as well. I just can't. I'm quite negative about it all. I just think we're against a corrupt establishment.
The courts, certainly. I mean, I think I put out a post today saying these judges are criminal, and it was in relation to a HIV-infected African rapist. I mean, I'm seeing these sorts of articles every day where they're getting the most lenient of sentences, sometimes not even given any time in prison for it. You know, oh, here's a slap on the wrist. Please don't rape anybody again. Exactly. And yet I know of good law-abiding, salt of the earth, wholesome people who just object to the criminality that is taking place against them, who are being arbitrarily arrested and maliciously prosecuted and thrown in prison for things like, you know, allegedly sharing songs or allegedly offending somebody with something that they've said online or with a meme.
Look
I
at
mean,
Charlie. Charlie got extradited. He's been in prison at remand ever since. You know, I think he's got his trial around June. What, for sharing a couple of posts?
allegedly.
Oh yeah, allegedly sharing a couple of posts or whatever. Mate, it's absolutely baffling. We're seeing paedophiles all the time in this country, just getting away scot-free, as you said. All very lenient. Well, look at my court case. You know, the worst thing I said right on the video was they're even trying to normalise paedophilia. Yeah, by calling it maps, minor attractive persons, and drag queen got so offended by it. And
that's accurate.
Yeah, and
that's accurate. You've got lots of evidence to support.
I wasn't calling the drag queen a paedophile, like, but it's implying the drag queen is a paedophile. It's just disgusting what's happening to loads of people. Like,
well, I would say that adults that have an interest in other people's children, a sexual interest in other people's children or in children in general, you know, that it's questionable. It's very questionable. Normal people don't want to talk to children about sex. They're not interested. Why do we have these like trannies in school talking about sex and gender and LGBT relationships? I mean, they were even teaching 4-year-olds about anal sex in some schools. I mean, it's why are we normalizing this degeneracy? I've seen like these family-friendly drag shows where they've got genitals on display. They're gyrating around.
Yeah. Some of them in lingerie and everything.
And they've got kids throwing money and kids dancing like strippers. And I'm like, do you think this is okay? You think this is okay? And then when we say we think this is pedophilia, yet we're the bad guys for pointing this out. It's a very backwards world, isn't it? What exactly are your charges, by the way?
What was that? Sorry.
What exactly are the charges?
Let me get my sheet. Okay. Right, so 2 charges. Sent by public communication network, an offensive, indecent, obscene, menacing message matter between the 1st and the 5th in Great Yarmouth, in the county of Norfolk, sent by means of a public electronic communications network matter, namely a Facebook post. That, yeah, I think what they're on about there is a woman. When we got one closed, obviously I was in the papers, and then my Facebook kept getting targeted. So I replied to one woman who was moaning, I took my children there for you to close it, blah, blah, blah. And I just said, you need your devices checked. So I think that's the Facebook post they're on about. And I'm thinking, well, and then the next one's basically the same electronic communication network matter, namely a YouTube video. So I basically vlogged the protest, the one we was shut down. The drag queen weren't even in attendance. Well, because obviously it got shut down, so we didn't even see the drag queen. So I've never even seen the drag queen in person. The drag queen then went on ITV. I don't know how much I can actually say here because I'll be used in court, maybe. I don't know. But the drag queen went on TV complaining about it as well, and which we're going to talk about soon. But they specify, he's moaning about it, and he hasn't even got children. Like as if I have to have a child to have an opinion on these sort of things.
Oh, apparently, yeah, that's a thing for many people these days. Apparently, if you don't have kids, then you clearly don't care about children at all.
Exactly.
Everybody should have them, otherwise you clearly hate children. Yeah. That seems to be the absolutist thinking in many people's brains these days.
The debate I was on last week, I was being heavily targeted by the chat. Some of them Tommy Robinson fans, obviously not keen on me making the switch to Nationalism. So still bitter about that. But they were just targeting. He hasn't even got kids. He hasn't even got. So what? So I haven't got friends that have got kids. I haven't got brothers that have got kids. So I can have no opinion on children and what they should be taught because I don't have kids. It's wrong.
Are we going into a video?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. I don't know if you've seen this video.
Oh.
marching 6x6, hurrah, hurrah. Families marching 6x6, hurrah, hurrah. It's frying pan grown-ups, you see, can love each other so proudly. And they all go marching in the big parade.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on
Indoctrination
that?
starts early, doesn't it? It's
That's
unreal.
absolute madness, and we're the wrong people for thinking this. We're the bad people.
I mean, it's like you see books now like Anti-Racist Baby, and I mean, it's they really do start the overt brainwashing of children at such a young age now. You know, what happened to just learning about, you know, ABCs and that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Nope. Now we got to learn about trannies, and you want to learn about your teacher's gender. Teaching maths racist anyway, right? English language is racist. Why don't we just learn about gay sex instead? That seems like an appropriate curriculum for 4-year-olds. It's where we're at.
Do you think as well, with this curriculum that's being pushed on people, this is why we're getting, because I think you have to give Islam a little bit of credit. They do have a powerful stance against this kind of stuff, don't they? Do you think
I think the Muslim community can certainly be utilized, but I think
that more of our people are going to convert to Islam because of their powerful stance and stuff like this.
Ooh, that's an interesting question, Chris. I actually see a lot of people within nationalism who do start to idealize some aspects of Islam and their practices, particularly with, you know, standing up against the LGBT nonsense. They don't allow that to be taught to their children. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, how likely is it? Like, if I was to claim that I'm a man tomorrow, I identify as a man, not just a man, a Muslim man. My name is now Mohammed Iqbal, and I demand access to the man's area of the mosque. How do you think that's going to go down?
It's not going to go down very well, is it?
No. Well, if you had, you know, some lad, a Muslim lad, that says, I want to start wearing a hijab and going to the women's part of the mosque, how do you think his family would react? Yeah, you see, it's mostly targeted towards white children. And I think in areas that are more densely populated with Muslim children, the schools actually don't exactly teach the same things, and certainly not to the same degree, because they have to accept the cultural sensibilities and sensitivities of the immediate population. That never applies to white people. But if you know, you're offending a foreign population, then you're allowed to alter your own rules of the game, because really most of this psychological warfare and destruction is aimed towards white people anyway. So they don't care if the densely populated Muslim schools don't comply with teaching homosexuality to children at a young age.
Well, they tried to do it in a school in Birmingham, actually. Like, it used to live about 20 minutes down the road, so it was a highly populated Muslim school. They were out there every day. I don't know if you remember it. They're out there.
Well, they can be out there every day. A lot of them don't work, do they? So, you know, with that, they can actually go out. Plus, they have much more cohesive and collective communities and a sense of identity and morality that comes with their strict religious practices. So, you know, they are going to be able to mobilize better. And I think many nationalists in some ways look upon that and wish that they had that sort of cohesive community with a shared sense of identity and morality that we used to have. And there is a lot of white Sharia sort of idealizing, you know, let's make women wear burqas. Let's take away all women's rights, because women's rights has led to feminism, and that's been the destruction of the white race. All women must be confined to just childbirth and making sandwiches in the kitchen. They shouldn't be given a say on anything. I mean, it's a bit incel culture, but you do see some of this start coming out of nationalism, which is almost like idealizing the traditionalism and cohesion of Islam, which, you know, I can understand when things in our society have got to the extremes of which they have, you know, where women are almost intolerable with the way that they are towards men. You know, it's horrendous. You've got all this LGBT globo homo nonsense. There's no sense of cohesion. People want to go back to some sort of traditional values. They want to have a sense of identity, a sense of purpose, a sense of community cohesion, and they see that in the Muslim community and they want to replicate it or join it because they can't see it being reconstructed within white society. And it is difficult to do so because we're not allowed to collectivize in the same way that other peoples are. Despite it being our homeland, we are the only peoples that are not allowed to collectivize for our own interests here.
Correct. I mean, what was your thoughts? I mean, I know Nick Griffin touched on it a few years ago, and I'm not saying that's do because I'd rather stay here and fight for my home, but I do think it is lost. I'm a bit negative when it's coming to England, and after visiting a lot of Eastern Europe, especially Serbia,
You loved it there, didn't you?
I'm very, very jealous. Like, I love it because I feel so safe. Yeah, I was there for like about a month, and I just felt safe. Everyone was pretty much, it's look over 95% white easily. And when you talk to them, it's like when we're having a conversation now, but you can have that conversation with any normal Serbian. So the normie Serbians would agree with us. Do you know what I mean? And then obviously they got that probably far right over there that probably go on protest, but they can't believe what's happening to England. Like, they're like, mate, how are you allowing this to happen? It's like, yeah, man, our flipping daughters and our sisters, being targeted by Muslim grooming gangs. You protest against it. You're the ones in trouble then, by the police. They're just shocked. They're absolutely shocked. But the question is, do you think it would be acceptable, for nationalists to maybe move to Eastern Europe?
I think that everybody has got their different roles and duties. I understand why people may wish to go to Eastern Europe where, they can live a life that they feel more inclined towards. I mean, you can go to church, you can marry a nice traditionalist woman, you can live away from all the diversity and all the degeneracy. But I think to abandon your homeland in a time of crisis, if you have the ability or believe you've got the ability to help do something about it, then you have a duty to remain and save your people and your nation. I mean, there are.
I would feel like a coward. I would feel like a coward if I moved to Eastern Europe. To be fair, even though I do think it's lost, I feel like I have a duty to stay here and fight to the end.
I do think that there are some circumstances where it could be a good idea. I mean, a lot of people seem to think that England's already lost and that it's better that we start making white enclaves and going off to some countries that are less diverse to try and establish a white state somewhere. But I refuse to give up the land of my forefathers. I mean, how many millions of them have come before us that have given everything for us to be here and to exist today? And now what? In the space of like 30 years, we're supposed to just hand it over to these foreign hostile people. I mean, I know they've been coming since Windrush, but really it's like since the beginning of the 90s that it's gone.
Yeah, no, we were still 95%, weren't we? 91.
Yeah. In the early 90s, we were still in 95% of the population. It's now rapidly dropping. I mean, I believe that we'll be a vulnerable, persecuted minority within the next decade or two.
Well, yeah, we are already in our major cities. I mean, like where I am now, I've been living Great Yarmouth way for about 7-8 years. No, probably about 5 or 6. But I remember when I first came here just 8 years ago to see the family, and I thought, mate, this is brilliant. It's just white everywhere. Like everywhere I'm going, Norwich, white. So I thought, you know what, I'm making a life down there. Honestly, I can't get a picture up. I was at a bus stop the other day, right, and there was about 30 blacks on the other side of the road. I'm like, am I being followed from Birmingham or somewhere here? Yeah, they had
They're just getting everywhere, though. It's like an infestation.
And obviously, Great Yarmouth, I don't know if you recall, growing up, it was always a town like where your family would take you out. It's a nice seaside resort. Mate, in the town centre last week, right, not far from the town centre, just on the outside. Oh yeah, he looked black. He had a hood on, but I presume he's black. Gets out of his bag a massive machete and fucking stabs the guy in the heart, dead. And that's the town centre of Great Yarmouth now. And I'm thinking, fucking hell.
It's just, well, I think it was Sadiq Khan about a decade ago after one of the terrorist attacks. It's like, oh, you just got to get used to this. It's part and parcel of living in a multiculturalist society. And I'm like, you keep keep repeating how great diversity and multiculturalism is for us, but all I'm seeing that we're getting in return is terrorism, rising acid attacks, stabbings, the destruction of everything that we built.
Paedophilia.
I mean, it's just nothing good comes from these people. It's just criminality. That is all we're being subjected to. I don't think that they actually bring anything of value at all.
No, of course not. No, of course not. Definitely not. All right, but while we're on the subject of degeneracy, let's have a little play at this. There's the Grammys. What's his name? Is it Sam Smith? Is it?
That's him. Yeah.
Him is a they. Let me correct you there. It's a they.
Can I call it an it? I think
it's best to call it.
I think that's more accurate. I mean, I've seen it. The first time I came across it was in a meme that was being shared, and it was him on a yacht. I think he was wearing some pants of some sort, but he was almost naked. And, you know, anyway, he was being compared to this fat, naked sort of rodent. I think it might have been a shaved rat, and their similarities were striking, to be honest. And that was the first time I saw it. And I actually thought it was like a post from Fat People Hate or something like that, but it wasn't. It was some celebrity. But then in the last couple of weeks, I've repeatedly seen this same fat degenerate everywhere. Everywhere. He's just turning up everywhere. Like 1 minute he's got white nipple tassels on and he's dancing around in a nappy or something. The next minute he's got thigh-high boots on and he's gyrating in somebody's face. And he always seems to be very fat, naked. At one point he was like wrapped up in straps. And yeah, you just think, is this the peak of celebrity at this point in time? I mean, if it's not that fat black woman playing the flute who seems to get everywhere, I don't know her name, the fat black woman playing the flute, or now it's this fat white guy. Yeah. Actually, can we actually not call him white? Can we take away his white card and his belonging to our community? He's not allowed to be called white anymore. His actions have taken that from him.
Just disgusting. That was actually sponsored by Pfizer as well, the jabs.
Oh, oh goodness. Yeah. That's hilarious. Clown world can't get any worse, can it? I mean, I actually did a little bit of a dive into the mainstream media. I usually try to avoid it because it just gets me wound up anyway. Yeah. But you know, I've heard some talk of like UFOs and, you know, Chinese sky balloons and all of this nonsense, train derailments, echoing Netflix programs, and all of this stuff. You know, stuff that sounds like complete conspiracy nonsense. So I thought, right, let's have a bit of a look. And it's like, all right, the world has reached new levels of insane. I see we've got politicians calling for nuclear war. That's great. We've got like trains derailing all over the place. And then the government saying, hey, yeah, we know that there's a load of toxic chemicals, but let's just set it on fire and release it into the environment. That seems like a great idea. I mean, it's just, and you know, the whole UFO thing as well. You just like
UFO. I was like, what is going on? That's the first time I looked into some news for ages, like mainstream media news, like CNN reporting, like, and actual government officials coming out, we shot an object down, you know, and this UFO topic. But it's a distraction, and the Epstein list meant to be coming out soon or something.
Yes.
All of the rubbish.
I've seen lists, but I think there is an awful lot of fake information that people generate around Epstein and stuff. I actually believe that it's part of the overwhelm strategy. So in between bits of information that are likely to be nearly accurate, you get a lot of inaccurate information and people creating deep fakes and fake documents and all these. I mean, you keep getting your channel spammed with these people that be like, oh, JFK and da-da-da and breaking news, you don't want to miss this. I stayed in the shadows until it was time to come out.
Yeah, I was just like, mine was just going ridiculous the last few days. Like, I woke up the other day and I had 130 red messages. I'll pop that. Oh no, I'm not. it's just a bloody rubbish spam all the time, and some other idiot that's spamming porn in my group to try and get it shut down. Some right idiots on that Telegram.
Yeah. You know, unfortunately, you get some people that are quite emotional. They get upset by things, and then Like, especially if you kick out someone, then you tend to get a lot of people that come in and then report random things to try and get your channel shut down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
My channels are already being shut down, though. My main
you have to set up a second one, haven't you?
Yeah, my main channel got censored, and they've been removing, like, I think it was 10 subs a day up until a certain point. I stopped counting after a while. I don't know what it's at now, probably down to like 3,000 and something. I've moved most of the active people who communicated and engaged on the chats into the round 2, but I still utilize the other channel. Just
I can't see.
Listeners.
That's why I just use the round 2, because I can't see the first one.
Yeah, it's
I mean, I can on my computer, but I don't really use Telegram on my computer that much, to be fair. Just to finish up with Sam Smith, because I think you might like this one. Fair play to this woman. She deserves a medal. Not all heroes wear capes.
Sam Smith belongs in hell, you demonic, twisted, sick bastard. Leave the kids alone, you sick fucker.
That's your first record.
Sam Smith is a pedophile. He's corrupting of the kids. Grooming the kids. You sick motherfucker, Sam Smith. You're evil.
God, how classy is that? What a white girl.
She sounded Irish as well. I mean, the Irish really, I think they're leading the way at the moment. They truly are. They seem to be doing a fantastic job of opposing all of this globo-homo, Afrocentric nonsense with their own protests in Ireland. And then this lady, seeing a lot of them recently.
They don't mess about though, do they? Same with the Scousers. I mean, obviously, they made plenty of noise last Friday. Very passionate people, the Irish and the Scousers. Again, I get quite jealous. Us Brummies, we ain't as passionate as these people. So I get a bit jealous of like the Scousers, the Irish, the Serbians. I'm in very jealous mode at the moment.
I was going to ask you what Birmingham's like, but I wanted to run off to go make.
Yeah, we're going to go on to Wesley Russell's speech. Absolutely amazing. Fair play to him. He also, getting around quite a bit actually. Did you see the video he did with Hope Not Hate as well?
I've not seen that.
Have you not seen that? While this is playing, I'll get that video as well.
Show that to me, yeah, please.
All right, so let's watch this speech and I'll go and find the other video.
And over the back, they're waving his black cap okay, thank you.
Hi, my name's Wesley Russell. It's very telling that a lot of the conversation tonight seems to be around the hotel. But let's not beat around the bush, okay? Everybody, I think, can agree with me that the biggest concern is everybody's welfare and safety. Now, don't take us for fools when you say that these people are refugees. We know they are illegal migrants. If these people were refugees, what are they fleeing from? It's very telling that we're never told what they are fleeing from. What wars are they fleeing from? What countries are they coming from? What are they fleeing? What persecution? We don't know. So we know that they're by definition illegal immigrants, which technically makes them criminals, and they should be treated as such. They shouldn't be put up in 5-star hotels. They should be in cells, and they should be told they are not leaving until they pay for their ticket back. So my question to you is not where are you going to shift them to in a year's time, how are you going to remove them from the country? And don't give me an excuse that, there's the UN refugee document that we signed, or it's the European Court of Human Rights. We voted for Brexit. This is supposed to be a sovereign country. You could easily withdraw from any of those agreements, but you don't. Your party has failed time and time again. In 2010, David Cameron said he was going to get immigration down. How did that work out? We've got higher levels than Tony Blair, and it was his intention to flood this country with migrants on purpose. These people, not all of them, but some of them are going to go on to commit egregious crimes, rape, theft, murder, and there was a reason why the other day there was that ruckus in Kirkby, and we all know why it was, because a migrant was harassing a young girl. That is going to happen in Dunstable. It's going to happen in every single part of the country. You need to stop this now, or you're going to have a serious problem on your hands. Thank you.
Ask your question. Okay.
Absolutely. Mate, honestly, I've got 3 points.
We'll move straight to the next question.
Well, move to the next question, please. No answers. Let's just ignore it. Honestly,
she did a
amazing.
wonderful speaking. He did very well. I thought he articulated his points really well. And then when she was talking over him, because it can be really hard to keep your train of thought going when people are interrupting you like that. And he did fantastically.
Mate, it's actually one of the best things I've seen for quite a long time, to be honest. So,
very good.
Russell, hats off to you, bro. Like,
I didn't realise who it was because I've actually heard it. I didn't think I actually saw his face in it until I've seen him speak somewhere else before.
Yeah, I think he's done a speech at PA. I think like he's got his own. I don't know. He had his own show. I'm not sure if he still does it at the moment. I'm not sure, but yeah, good lad as well. Good lad, to be fair. So much credit. I'll show you the other video. Let me try and find it. But yeah, I think we need more people. And do you know what I was wiping about that? The audience, like I remember what's his name, True K. Like he done a fantastic job against Dan Hannon, was it, a few years ago? And the audience was pretty boisterous against him, and I thought, but that audience, the amount of people clapping, major white pill. That's very good to hear. That was.
He's right. People are concerned, and we should be concerned about our safety and welfare. These people have gone on to commit horrendous crimes.
It's a pain, I just like, why can't you just put the video on and it goes to the bottom rather than coming straight on?
Don't talk to fascists.
Yeah, sorry, finish what you were just saying. I'll play this.
No, I want to see this. I've not seen this. He was one of the people at the tape protest.
Yeah. Obviously, this fella is on the left, Joe Mulhall, is it? Something like that?
I recognise that. Is he Hope Not Hate? I'm sure he's one of them.
Hate.
Yeah, I can't recognise which one he is, but I'm pretty sure that's one of them.
Yeah. It is one of them, yeah. One of the main ones.
The far right, that's your job, isn't it? You don't talk to us. No, we like to talk about us, don't we? Yeah, we like to talk about you. We like to talk about how you want to normalise grooming. You want to get queer theory into the brains of little children, don't you? Which, in other words, means you want to turn kids gay, don't you? You want to turn kids gay. Is this all you got? Swear words? You can't have an intellectual debate with me, can you? You can't have an intellectual debate with me because you know you have a perverse worldview.
Like that. Fuck off. It takes a picture. That was funny. That was amusing. I haven't seen that previously.
Yeah. Gotta be careful. I hate, honestly. They will just try and destroy your life. So I'm hoping he doesn't get too much of a comeback from that. So best of luck to Wesley Russell. But fantastic work, 2 weeks in a row, smashing it. And hopefully he's gave an energy and belief to many other nationalists, whether they're from PA or whatever. I don't care. Just get out there and do your thing. But nice bit of griping.
What is the definition of griping? I see this term often from yourself.
Well, I just got it from Mick, for instance, because I was mad about him at the time. So I thought, we need to bring this to the UK. I think it's just more or less putting the difficult questions, really, isn't it? Obviously, Groiper is that figure, that animated figure. But from what I've seen from Forensics, just putting the difficult questions to these kind of people, like he was then with Hope Not Hate, and the better one, obviously, there with the MP. So things like that I would call a gripe here. Right, moving on. What we've got? Oh, okay. We'll end with the baby talk. What? Have we got anything else? Okay, so this article here. This was, that person in your chat called C. I think there's a GoFundMe to help his university students.
John Christian's case. I believe he's still crowdfunding. But I believe that he's going to submit his claims, as far as I'm aware, and things are looking quite good. He's got a protest in March on, I've forgotten what date, and I should know that.
So do you actually know the story in more detail? Because you probably know more than me.
Yes. Well, I don't know how much I can put out into the public domain. I actually know this gentleman quite well. I have done for a number of years, funnily enough. I know it's quite odd. Recently, I've been getting in contact with an awful lot of people who I haven't spoken to for quite a while through other people that have said, oh, I know this person and they sound like they're going to be useful. And they give me their name and I'm like, I've known this person for 7 years. They lost contact with me after I got kicked off of various social media, passed me my details because I could do with them again. And yes, he's one of them that I didn't speak to for possibly a year or so because he's had his own things going on. But yeah, I was aware of what was going on whilst the actual events were taking place, and then subsequently what's happened later on. He's just another normal white male. You know, he's a Christian. He holds certain opinions. He's not aggressive in his mannerisms, in his behavior. He's a very intelligent lad, incredibly intelligent. He was studying a PhD, and they've basically refused to mark his PhD. They gaslit him. They persecuted him. They harassed him. They made his life a misery, and they've destroyed his education. Well, his aspirations in education, getting his PhD, purely because he objected mildly, without any offensive language, to some of the more extreme left-wing propaganda that is endemic within university spaces. You know, like women don't exist. A man with testicles and a penis, if he wants to put on a dress and call himself Irene, should be allowed in women's sports, women's changing rooms, women's bathrooms, you know, should be able to call himself a woman. And, you know, a biological female, you know, ovaries, uterus, breasts, vagina, you know, those things apparently don't make a woman now. You know, chromosomes don't matter. It's what you identify as. If you object to that, then you're seen as a right-wing extremist. You have Marxists within the faculty that work together to ensure that your life is made very uncomfortable. They bring an awful lot of false complaints against you. You'll even get them going round asking people if they have any complaints that they might want to make against you, or will they be willing to make one up. They are horrendous. They need dealing with, because the Marxists in education are probably one of the root causes of, the roots of the brainwashing within our society. You see quite normal kids, sometimes they go off to university, and you know, within a couple of years, they're raging feminists. I've seen some of the photos. They're worse than the before and after meth photos, you know, the before and after university and feminism. They go from, like, you know, nice, healthy looking women that would, like, you know, dress nicely, hung out with their friends, to being, you know, angry with shaved heads, with part of it dyed blue, and septum piercings, and scrawling angry messages about men on their breasts and going out protesting it. Yeah, it's quite horrendous. These people need to be held accountable, but holding them to account is very difficult. You can't do it through their complaint systems. So the only ways and means in which people are seeing a way to hold them accountable is now through the courts. And that's what it's come to. So we'll see how successful people are. I've been keeping tabs on Amy Gallagher's case against the Tavistock Institute, and she seems very confident. I'm hopeful that her case will be successful. We've got my case, which I should imagine will go to trial this year. It's been going on now for 2 years, so I'm hoping.
What would that be at Leeds Crown Court, would it?
No. Crown Court's for criminal court. It's a civil case. Within the Equality Act, it has practice directions, you know, you've got to adhere to. So when you submit claims underneath the Equality Act, you've got to submit them to the county court. Now, I would prefer that my claims were heard in a higher court, due to the high court.
Will that have a jury then or not? No, it won't.
No. What I imagine is going to happen is that we will have a trial that will go to the county court. If I contest the results, let's say if I'm unsuccessful in part or whole with my claims, I will take it to the appeal court, of course. I could take it to the High Court and then the appeal court, and then I could apply to try take it to the Supreme Court. Yeah. But even if the Supreme Court were to reject it, which they usually do reject appeals from the Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court, they might not do if it was on the basis of access to justice, but they probably would on discrimination. We could even take it to the European Court of Human Rights because of the human rights element to it, the freedom of expression. So that's a possibility. John Christian, the name that he's going by, he's going with a judicial review, because that would be how he would be able to remedy him not receiving his PhD due to the malicious persecution of Marxists within his university. Whereas for me, I've already left that university, and the qualification or the credits that I had towards that qualification was quite early on. So I've been willing to. I didn't want a judicial review. I want to hold them accountable for their their racial harassment, their victimization, the sending police officers to my house to ask me why I don't like Black Lives Matter, reporting me to Prevent for saying that Sharia law undermines women's equality before the law. You know, yes, they tried to do a lot of things.
What are you aiming to get out of this then? What would be classed as a result for your success?
Oh, I want to win. I want to win every single one of the claims. Now, I've already had the defense try get all of my claims struck out, saying that they're unmeritorious and I have no chance of success. And that's now been looked at in 2 hearings by 2 judges, and the majority of my claims still stand. In fact, there was only one aspect of the legal claims that was struck out, and that was only because I didn't really want to fight it, because my claims are so large and complex as it is. I think it distracts the judge from some of the key points that you want to make, because you're only given a certain amount of time in a hearing. So the claims that were relating to discriminatory advertisements by third parties that didn't allow white applicants, I've dropped that and gone for the direct discrimination that they've conducted themselves, and the harassment, the victimization, and the not upholding my rights to freedom of expression underneath the Education Act and the Human Rights Act. But the success will be one. Well, I'm asking for compensation. I'm asking for remedies. I'm asking for damages. That isn't a specific amount. That could be open. Underneath the Equality Act, you can ask for damages without a specific amount. Originally, I was trying to claim for psychological and emotional harm with a set amount to a legal tiered structure that you have to adhere to. But that would have limited me to claiming like 21,000 in psychological and emotional harm damages, and I'd have to get an independent medical examiner's report. Claiming damages under the Equality Act doesn't actually require an independent medical examiner's report, because it's seen as it would be reasonable to assume that if somebody was subjected to that kind of behavior, that sort of detriment, that it would have a negative psychological and emotional effect on that person, and therefore they should receive damages. So I'm wanting them to compensate me for the cost of me studying with them for a year, because I couldn't carry the credits of that course that I successfully completed over into the new university's law program. So that was thousands of pounds lost. I want all the costs that I've incurred so far with bringing this case forward. I want compensation, the damages for the psychological and emotional harm and stress that I've endured over the litigation period, and whilst I was being subjected to this victimization by my former university. And I want a statement of apology for their racially discriminatory actions against me as a white student, and a revision of all of their practices, policies, and procedures to ensure that they are in line with the Equality Act and do not discriminate against the white Indigenous population on the basis of their race. And I've told them that there won't be any negotiating. I'm not going to settle for less than that. If they're not willing to give me those remedies, admit that they discriminated, compensate me for all of the harm, loss, and stress that they've caused me, compensate me for the useless course that I cannot use towards my end of my degree, then then they wouldn't have to go to trial. You see, when they go to trial and they lose, which they're going to.
So you're extremely confident you're going to win this, yeah?
I believe that I might not win every single one of the claims because the judges are sometimes a little bit more favourable, I would say, towards. I believe my legal arguments on the direct discrimination are incredibly strong. My victimization claims are very strong. So, yeah, I mean, all I need to do is win parts of the claims, and I've won anyway. So, but I do believe that every single one of them is possible for being a successful claim, seeing as if these claims have already been scrutinized by 2 judges in separate hearings, and they've decided that they have sufficient merit to proceed to a trial. And I've been successful in defending them against a team of barristers, law school. And yeah, I think I've got what you would call experienced confidence now. When I first went into those hearings, I wasn't completely sure, but now I've got access to like case law, and I can look up the precedents. I don't see what leg they've got to stand on. The only defense that they could possibly bring for discriminating against people in a racial manner is positive action, which has to be proven. And I think they will struggle to do so due to the fact, like I've spoken about before, the white indigenous population, especially those coming from the white working class and disadvantaged backgrounds, have the lowest participation and attainment rates in education right through from early years to higher education. White working class boys are the smallest demographic now going on into university. It isn't proportionate to achieve a legitimate aim. So I will look forward. I'm going to look forward to the trial, yeah.
Well, very best of luck to you. So let's discuss the controversial subject of the baby issue then.
Don't know why it's so controversial, but it is because of the cults of. I mean, it's one of those subjects where nationalists behave very similarly to lefties. Now, there are different areas of the babies issues that people take exception to with me. Now, one of them is, is my view that not everybody might want or be suitable to having children. There are a number of nationalists within our circle.
Let's clarify, you don't actually want children ever.
That's not what I've said. Now,
okay.
I personally do not find the idea of being pregnant and childbirth. It's the physical actions of it that I don't particularly like. I don't mind children, other people's children, but when they start screaming on airplanes and things, I can give them back. Some people are like incredibly maternal. They go, oh, goo, goo, go, goo, goo, gaga, when they see somebody else's kid. They're really interested in it. Some of us are not. I mean, there are different peoples in society, right? You can't tell me that every man is made for conflict, because I've met men that are like empaths that are a bit soft. You've got ones that, wouldn't really be physical fighters, but they have great expertise in mathematics, in physics, in engineering. You've got artists. People have different personality traits. They have different talents, different attributes, and they play different roles within a society. Now, some people are just not very well suited to certain caregiving roles. One of my major concerns, really, with nationalism is it becomes almost cult-like, some of these beliefs, like the cult of white babies, for example, to the point where people will be quite disrespectful and, I would say, ungrateful of the nationalists who don't have children within our circles, who work incredibly hard for the future of their children. I mean, it's like you said before, people seem to think that because you don't have children, you don't care about them. I care deeply. Main reason that I do what I do today is because I don't want other children to have to suffer through some of the things that I had to, and that is why I fight so hard today. But it's not that I'm like, it's an absolutely absurd view. You get people that will say, oh, because she doesn't want to have children immediately, might not be suitable for me. It's something that I've considered. Up until last year, it wasn't really a safe option for me. I had a misdiagnosis of bipolar on my record, and that combined with me having being a victim of these Muslim paedophile rapist gangs and having the political opinions that I did, I knew, and I'd been previously told, I'd get an automatic referral to social services the moment that they found out that I was pregnant. Now, all of 2021, 22, I was working very hard to get that false diagnosis rescinded, which I've successfully done. And then I entrapped a few of their state officials, a couple of doctors and a social worker, into admitting covertly while I was filming them on camera that they had no real concerns about my physical or mental capacity to be a parent, and that the reason that I'd be getting referred was purely because of my past political activity with UKIP and because of my white rights advocacy. And I've got that on record. And I then basically started pre-action for litigation against them, because I was going to sue them personally, and they seemed to drop it. But now I'm less concerned about these things. I'm now more concerned about the suitability. I've been a face-out nationalist for quite some time. My opinions are very well known. I am aware that doing what we do is very difficult to do when you are a parent, right? Because most people, once they have a kid, especially if you're a nationalist, you will make them your priority. You want to invest in them heavily. You're not just going to stick them in front of a television or shove them at a nursery with some unknown people to look after. You tend to self-educate them. You take them everywhere with you. So if your main priority, like mine is trying to secure a future for our people, sometimes you can't always do that when you have children. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have a large support system. Who would look after them if I was supposed to be going to court? Who would look after them if I was going to go to a protest? I mean, I don't actually feel safe to do so anyway, completely because of the social services issue. I know nationalists and nationalist families who have been subject to arbitrary arrests, malicious prosecutions. You know, the men have been put in prison under, you know, obscure legislation that is selectively applied, terror legislation, put in prisons miles away from their young children for years on end. I've now got people who are contacting me telling me they're getting referrals to social services, you know, on the basis of their political views. And they're being told that their extremist political opinions could cause their children psychological and emotional harm in future. And that's a concern that they're taking into consideration when thinking about possibly removing these children. I mean, this is really happening to people. It's not like something that you don't have to be worried about. It is a major concern for me. I know a lot of people have these views that you should all want, like, to produce white children, and I think most people do. Most people do actually want them.
I mean, that seems to be the argument against us. Like, as I said earlier, as soon as I go on a show and I'm talking about white people becoming a minority, well, Chris hasn't got any children. I actually want children, just it hasn't quite happened as of yet. But
well, this is a sad fact. There is an awful lot of people.
Argument to that if you are standing up for white people not to become a minority, that we should do our part by having as many children as we possibly can.
I mean, I think that there are going to be people, and I think it's great if we get like young couples and you've got a very maternal mother type and she just wants to have loads of kids. She's got no interest in being involved in anything else. And, you know, the husband can support that financially. Yeah. But the fact is this ideal is very difficult for many people to achieve now. I've got a lot of nationalists in my chats that don't have children. Some of them have got partners. They're in a stable relationship, but physically, unfortunately for them, they haven't been able to. They've had IVF and it still hasn't worked. Yeah. They've suffered multiple miscarriages and are infertile. Physically, it's not been capable for some of these nationalists to have children. And they work incredibly hard for our cause. And yet they're told that the only worthwhile activity they can be participating in is having children. And it's so ungrateful for the sacrifice, the work and the effort and time and money that these people without children are putting into nationalism, that the people say, oh, well, that doesn't matter because the only worthwhile thing you could be doing is reproducing. Finding a suitable partner, being in a stable relationship, you know, coming across somebody who meets your, let's say, physical and other standards, has the right level of compatibility. I mean, as a nationalist woman, it's not like I just want to go out and get impregnated by any guy out there. I want to know that 1, he's got good genetics, 2, that he's going to be a good father, 3, that he's going to be able to weather the storm of persecution if and when it comes, you know, and that could be difficult to find. I can imagine for most nationalist men, it could be difficult to find a woman who is suitable, who isn't a feminist, who isn't sleeping around with a million guys on Tinder and going around and acting like a slut. I mean, right. It's quite difficult for men to find a suitable partner. I mean, we know that this is a massive problem in nationalism. We see people trying to set up dating and all this sort of things. Yeah. And then even if you have a suitable partner, sometimes you might not be in a suitable position to. I mean, having a child takes a community. It does take a village. It's very difficult if you're doing that alone and away from any family support, particularly if you are active in nationalism, because you've got nobody to help you, you know, nobody to childmind, nobody for support. And like I said, it doesn't feel safe for many people to do so. And then there are those that are just not very well suited to it. Personally, I believe that, you know, there are some people, even women, that are not suited to having children.
What's your thoughts on adoption then? Like these people that can't have a baby themselves? Would you?
If they can't have children themselves, I think that adoption is a good option. You know, but it depends where those children came from. I don't think that white couples or any race of couple should be adopting another race.
Oh no, definitely not. That should be
another race's children, and it depends whether that child was voluntarily put up for adoption or not. Children that are put up for forced adoption are stolen children and should not should not be taken from their families in that manner in a
Oh,
lot of circumstances. So I'm kind of against it. I mean, I do find it very sad when it's not physically capable for nationalists. I think that is really sad for them. But like, I get so many people. I mean, there are some women that left it a little bit too late. There are guys that just didn't manage to settle down. And then there are those that have tried and have not been successful. But to proclaim that all of their activity and all of their work is basically useless. I mean, what about these people that go out and leaflet for you? These people that go out and litigate for you? These people that will go out on marches and will take risks that the people with children cannot?
Yeah.
You know, people have to think about being able to provide for their dependents when they have children. The ones that don't have children don't have to think about dependents, so can take much more risk. They're the ones that are going to be out there fighting for the future of these kids, whilst everybody else is spectator nationalists, you know, online, commenting about how we should all just settle down and have kids like them. Well, who's going to be doing our work then? Because sometimes you can't do both at the same time. And
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's a piss poor argument, to be honest. I mean, it just shows you how much we care. Okay, we haven't got children, but we still care about other people's children and our families' children, you know, and for the future of our country. You know, our grandparents, our ancestors went to war after war, fighting for our future, and that's what we should be doing for our people, whether we got children or not.
Well, I believe that, you know, it's like if we were in a war, you wouldn't just suddenly start swapping around people's roles. I mean, if you've got people that have certain talents, traits, skills, knowledge, you utilize them to the best of those capabilities and you place them in roles that they're suited to, what they're good at, what they're skilled at, what they're knowledgeable at, what they're trained in, you know, what their natural attributes would suit them towards. Yet we don't seem to think like that as nationalists. We just think, right, men do this job, women do this job. And it's just so basic. I mean, even within male populations, as I've described, you get different kinds of males. But the way that nationalists think is like they would have scientists sent to the trenches. They'd have nursery nurses and like primary school teachers be given weapons and do the job of soldiers. I mean, it's just absolutely absurd. We should have people doing the jobs that they're most suited to. If you have people who are more aggressive and prone to engaging in conflict, why would you then want them around kids? If you have people who are very soft and maternal and empathetic and love caring and wiping bums, why would you want to send them to the front lines? Send people into the roles that they're best suited within. That's one of the things that bothers me in nationalism, is this solution absolutism and the cult of white babies, when you're never going to outbreed them. I mean, unfortunately, because of the altruism of white people, we have allowed the foreign hostile races to breed to such huge proportions that there is no chance of you ever outbreeding them. You're not going to outbreed the
some of them have 4 wives.
I mean, we do need more white children, and nobody thinks any differently. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that every single nationalist is not a nationalist unless they have children. I think that view is incredibly damaging. One of the other aspects is the cult of natural birth. Now, the cult of natural birth and home birth is something that I have been campaigning against long before I actually became more visible in nationalism. And my reasons for disliking this particular false ideology is because of the deaths and disability that it's caused women and babies, preventable deaths and disabilities. It's like within nationalism and within the natural birth cult, they have this falsified view that if you think enough happy thoughts and breathe correctly, that there'll be no complications, that it'll all go smoothly and nothing can possibly go wrong. And if something goes wrong, it's the fault of the mother for not breathing well enough or not thinking happy enough thoughts with her hypno breathing. When the fact is that childbirth was the #1 killer of women before the advancements of modern medicine. And modern medicine saves many people's lives today during labor and birth. When people birth at home without any sort of assistance, now I know some reasons why people do this, and it's because, you know, they have a mistrust of modern medicine and they feel safer at home. But if there were to be a complication, and there are many complications, and the #1 detriment that happens to babies is hypoxic brain injury. And there are so many causes of this. It can come from placental issues. It can come from contractions being too strong. It can come from labor being prolonged. It can come from obstruction. There are many different ways in which a baby can be starved of oxygen at birth. In fact, the likelihood increases the more natural the birth is. I mean, unless you're including oxytocin inducing. When you do an induction, it does increase the contractions and sometimes does sometimes cause a hypoxic effect. But if you were at home, right, and you're giving birth and you're miles away from the hospital, or you've decided to be idiotic and free birth, and your baby gets into complications, you've then got to rush that woman to the hospital, and every second counts while that baby is being starved of oxygen. I mean, the most common injury to babies during childbirth is hypoxic brain injuries, cerebral palsy, and other, disabilities that come from.
You have spoke about this quite in detail in post, and like a lot of people listen to you. A lot of people do listen to you, but do you not think, right? I'm not having a go, yeah. Just please don't think I'm having a go. But do you not think talking like this may put some of your viewers who may be female off having a baby?
No. Now, here is the thing. What I want to advocate for is safer, more humane childbirth. I do think that in some circumstances, it might be okay for women to birth at home, especially if it's not her first time and she has medical assistance and she is not too far away from a hospital, that she could get there quickly in an emergency. Because there have been women who, they go into this cult of natural birth. They go into these forums. They believe that they can home birth and they end up with their babies dead or disabled. You've got a 20% increase in the chance of your baby being dead or disabled when you do a home birth due to that hypoxic risk. I mean, what I would like to see is women actually being able to access medical care that is safe and effective. Like, I think that women should be informed about the risks of cesareans and vaginal childbirths alike. I think that they should warn people who have very good indicators that they are going to go into some difficulties, that those difficulties may arise, and give them the option of going for a cesarean section. I mean, this campaign is something that has been going on for quite some time. And I'm not sure whether you've seen things like the Ockenden report. I mean, in the, Shrewsbury and Telford Hospital, between 2000 and 2018, there was 13 women that died unnecessarily because they refused to use medical intervention because of their cult of natural childbirth. And hundreds of babies died. Thousands more came out disabled. There was a massive inquiry into this. And I don't see why we enforce this medieval barbarity upon women when in reality we have advancements in modern medicine that could alleviate much of the risk and much of the trauma that takes place in the birth environment. I'm not against natural birth in its entirety. Yeah. I think that some women are very lucky. They have the right physical attributes, like the right shaped pelvis. Their baby is a decent size, but not too big. I mean, you can get 4 different types of female pelvis. You've got the android, the platypoid, I forgot what the middle one is with the heart shape, and an android. With android and platypoid pelvises, you've only got like a 30% chance of them ever giving birth naturally, vaginally. Yeah, they become obstructed without a doubt. Then there are women like my own mother. She had 2 successful natural births. One, she had an epidural with my older sister. With me, she had nothing. I was a very quick and easy labor. She didn't even feel like she was in any pain. Then my younger sister did a lot of damage. She was back to back, and literally my mother had to be reconstructed. And when she became pregnant with my younger brother, the hospital said there was no chance that they would let her go through a natural birth again. So it can vary from pregnancy to pregnancy, not just mother to mother. You could have 2 successful natural births and then on the third face difficulties that you weren't expecting. And those difficulties, if you were at home, could lead to death and disability. They could in the hospital, but the likeliness of it leading to serious death, death and disability, serious outcomes increases the further you are away from medical assistance. And what I fear is going to happen is like women are very, like you say, you think that my views are going to make women scared of giving birth. And I don't want to make people afraid of it, because I know that fear doesn't, it can have some negative effects on people during childbirth. There is a correlation between fear, pain, and negative outcomes. But I think telling women that, these things that happen, all these negative outcomes, the deaths, the disabilities, the debilitating injuries, telling women that that doesn't happen and we've got to pretend that it doesn't exist.
Oh yeah,
it's ridiculous. Now,
yeah,
I mean,
you want to so you basically want to mentally prepare the woman that this may happen.
Well, no, my main concern with the propagation really of the cult of natural birth and home birth within nationalist circles is that women are very impressionable. They like the approval of their in-group and their community. And my fear is we're going to have a nationalist family who are going to think, oh, to be accepted and for people, to applaud me and for people to appreciate what I've done, I've got to give birth naturally at home, in a bathtub, thinking with scented candles and happy thoughts. And then there becomes an emergency and their baby dies. I mean, what are the natural birthers going to say then? Oh, you just didn't think enough happy thoughts. You didn't breathe well enough. That's why your baby's dead. Is that what they're going to say? I mean, that is my major fear, because this has been happening to women that have been conned on other platforms like Mumsnet and such into natural births and then have ended up with babies with serious disabilities, cerebral palsy, serious cognitive disabilities. You get women that hemorrhage really badly. I mean, it is something that is risky. It is something that is dangerous. It is something that we should be looking at trying to mitigate the risks of rather than encouraging it. I think if you are an experienced mother, you've given birth once before and you want to give birth at home with a midwife close to a hospital, fair enough. That I have no problem with. But this idea of the ideal is for women to go for a natural vaginal birth at home under any circumstances, and anything otherwise is you hating white babies and not being a good mother, is ridiculous. And that ideology is going to lead to the deaths and disabilities of white babies and mothers. You're going to have white mothers walking around with that level of guilt and that level of grief because they know that they made a wrong decision, warped by this ideology into believing that happy thoughts and breathing the right way is going to mitigate any problems that might come their way during labor, is wrong. And telling women that, and like I say, is going to lead to their deaths. So that's why I object to it so much. Women should be given informed choices, and it should be specific to them. So if you've got a woman who's had a very healthy pregnancy, she's got all the correct indicators, and she wants to go for a natural birth, nothing should stop her. But if you've got women who, let's say, have already had a very negative experience, women who have indicators that they're going to get into trouble, like narrow pelvis, big baby. If you're one of these women that experiences extreme period pains and pain in your back during your periods, the likeliness of you experiencing back labor and getting into complications is very high. They don't tell people about this. And a lot of women are being left with debilitating injuries through being forced to go through what was a trial by labor. And this is what the Ockenden report was all about. How many women have been left with post-traumatic stress disorder, have been left with incontinence, have been left with prolapse, have been, left with serious debilitating injuries that never heal. These are actually incredibly common. And yet we pretend that they don't happen. And intelligent women that have access to this information, rather than thinking, oh, I'm going to pretend that that's not a possibility, want to limit the probability of any of those outcomes. And I feel that it's necessary to inform women of the realities of it. I think that 99.9% of the time when women have a baby, that it's always going to be worth it. It's probably going to be the best thing you've ever done in your life. I'm not going to say that it's not, because every single person that's done it, bar a very small minority, I've only met like 3 people that have ever said they truly regret having them. And if they could go back, wouldn't have them. Like 3 people in my lifetime.
What about what's your thoughts on? Sorry,
but let's not pretend. I mean, white babies are great. Parenthood is great when you get to raise them and see them grow up. But let's not pretend that childbirth isn't a brutal and sometimes very deadly. And people won't like this. I find it a revolting process. I do. I really do. And I know that's not a popular opinion, but, we've got to recognize that it is something that can carry risks, and pretending that it doesn't is almost like when lefties will pretend that immigrants carry no risks and act like, you hate everybody because, you don't want the immigrants coming in because they pose risks, or you're just a racist. It's like people say to me, oh, you hate white babies because you don't like the cult of natural birth. No, I like white babies to arrive healthily and happily on this earth. I like their mothers to come out of childbirth as healthy, fit and capable as possible. and as happy and able to bond and actually participate in family life as possible. I want to see more healthy, happy white families with undamaged children and undamaged mothers. That's my goal.
So
Ignoring the risks and pretending that they don't exist isn't the way to go about it. It's going to continue getting worse because we're just pretending that those risks don't ever apply.
very well said. So to sum up, really, you're still advocating for people to have children, but as long as it's...
Yeah, I want as many white people to have children as possible. I want you to have as many kids as possible, but stop trying to force me to have them when I haven't got a suitable partner right now. I don't have the right family support. I'm a face-out nationalist that's already been heavily persecuted by the state. I'm okay with whatever they want to do to me. I don't care. I made a conscious decision to do what I do. Yeah. But, you know, when I have dependents, if I have kids, I can't continue to do what I'm doing anymore. And I wouldn't, because they've become my priority. I wouldn't engage in litigation. I wouldn't engage in face-out activism. I would probably only be a spectator nationalist that would cheer other people on from the sidelines. And I still think I'd be targeted anyway. So if I find somebody suitable, I may do it at some stage. But for you nationalists out there that don't have children or can't have children, have tried to have children or can't find a suitable partner, your work in nationalism is just as valuable as people who have kids. Your activism is just as valuable to the nationalist sphere as somebody who's a parent. It doesn't mean that your activism has less worth just because you haven't produced a white baby yet or are not going to. You're a white person that's standing up for the people, our race, then yeah, your work is of value regardless. That's just something that I want to put out there.
Okay, two more questions on the old baby front. So I'll start off with abortion. What's your feelings towards abortion?
I think abortion is wrong mostly. I don't really care if other races want to abort their kids. I don't really care if Jews want to abort their kids. When it comes to abortion, though, it's like, we know how you get pregnant. You get pregnant from having sex. Now, you can either choose to abstain or you can choose to be careful and take precautions. But if you don't really have a right to cancel that life just because it's inconvenient to you. And when we have a shortage of white people, I think that it is something it's wrong. However, I'm not completely against it. If a white woman were to be raped and wanted to abort that child, I would allow that. If the child, upon scans later on in development, was shown to have serious disabilities, I would allow abortion of sick and disabled babies, ones that are never going to live a fit, full, healthy life, that are not going to have a good quality of life. I would allow abortion of them. But if you're talking about healthy white pregnancies that were voluntarily made, no, that abortion shouldn't be allowed.
You wouldn't make abortion illegal then?
I don't think you can make it completely illegal.
Yeah,
I mean, I think what you would do is just get rid of it. Would have to be something that you would have to have strong medical evidence that there would be no viable long-term outcome for that child, that it's not going to be of value to society, that it's going to be too sick, too disabled, too useless to really do anything with. So, if they can't be productive members of society, if they're going to live all of their days in pain or suffering without purpose and die at a young age, then yes, I do think that you should be able to eliminate sickness and genetic illness from society in that manner. I don't think people should be forced to keep disabled children. That's going to be a really unpopular view, I know, but I don't think people should be forced to keep them.
Yeah, well, obviously it depends on the parent. Some parents might not care. I've got a cousin, he's disabled.
It depends on what level of disability, though, doesn't it? I mean, I've seen some parents that have had one kid that's like very disabled. They're not living a healthy, happy life. They don't even know what's going on around them. Some of them are blind. They have fits all the time. They're probably going to die before they even reach 10 years of age. And then the parents go and have another kid. And then they start complaining, we're not getting enough help from the state with our 3 or 4 disabled kids. Well, you were told it was a genetic thing. Why did you keep having more? It's like, why do we keep having to produce more invalids and other things in society that we're not going to be able to do anything with and have to just sustain until they die a miserable early death? It just doesn't make sense to me. So abortion should be banned in any circumstances of a healthy, viable white pregnancy. But if it's not healthy or it's not white.
Yeah, well, the final question on it. Obviously, I'm not going to ask you for any names, and we don't need to mention any names. But I did see you have a pop. I don't know if you was aiming towards anyone anyway, but I don't need to know. Having a pop like nationalists putting their babies out on Telegram or social media in itself.
Why do they do it? Why do they do it? I mean, it's like, I don't understand why they do it in the first place. I mean, it's a massive security risk to them and their children. I mean, they put out names, dates of birth. They take photographs. I mean, from a photograph, you can get location data, date of birth, name of parents, you know, and their full name. You can start gathering all kinds of data on that child. You can probably find out where they get signed up to their doctors, you know, where they were born. You can find out who the mothers is, who the grandparents are. You can find out all kinds of information. And the only people that are going to be interested, honestly, in other people's children that they don't know very well, you know, are not like in their family or their immediate friend group. The only people online that are going to be interested in your kids are people that do not have nice intent towards them. So why are you posting your kids' faces, your kids' names, your kids' private information on there? Why do it? It just baffles me. I mean, you wouldn't go and dox your mother in that way. So why would you do it to the most vulnerable and precious thing you have in your life, your child? It's not a fucking prop for you to use for views and likes. It's a baby. Stop posting its personal information that could put it at risk online. I don't see why I'm the bad guy for pointing that out.
I completely agree with you. I mean, I've called it out before in the past. Again, I'm not going to mention names. Thankfully, that baby doesn't really appear much anymore. So thankfully, I don't care whether they listen to me or not. I'll probably not.
I mean, I would love it if they just say, you know, congratulations. I mean, maybe, no, not even the pictures when they're newborn. I mean, if they're in the, I don't know. Even then, I just think it.
Can you understand from their point of view? They've just got.
Don't announce exactly when they were born, because that gives a date of birth and a name. You know, so it's like, announce that you've had a white child, that you're really happy, that you're really proud of the mother, and they're both really healthy.
You can understand it from their point of view that they want to show it.
Do you need to give us details on the type of birth? Do we need to know whether it took place at home? Do we need to know if any interventions were used? Do we need to know if your missus had an epidural? Do we need to know every little detail? We don't fucking need to know. Just let us know that you had a white baby, and that's it. We'll all congratulate you. We'll applaud. But why then use it as your main sort of source of attention from that moment onwards? People are interested in you because of your political work, not because of your family life. We don't need your photo album bringing out.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, there's some people that have kept the children away from the scene. So
many people do, because they're a little bit more sensible. But sometimes the oxytocin in people's brains when they first have a kid.
Can you understand from their point of view? I'm just trying to play devil's advocate, because I completely agree with you. I think they should be nowhere near, but you know, they've just had their first baby, so they're like,
if I have a child, none of you are even going to know about it. None of you would even know about it. You wouldn't even know that I'd been pregnant. You'd see me from here up, you have the kid, and I wouldn't even tell any of you, because it wouldn't be any of your business, and I wouldn't want anybody knowing, because it would put that child at risk. The only people that would know would be my immediate family and some close friends. I think I'm going to broadcast it to the entire internet. Why?
I think I would, though. I wouldn't show the picture. I think I would tell. I think I'd say.
I might drop it in conversation like a month or two later. Oh, by the way, I had a white baby. Yeah. That's it. That'd be all it would be. Oh, I had a baby. Yeah, it was a while ago, and I'm not telling you exactly when, and you're not seeing photos. Yeah, that's just it. Because you know, it's. I don't know why people's private, family, and personal information needs to be in the public domain, especially when you are nationalist and you are at target by the state and by people who hate you. Why do it? That's what I get angry about. And yeah, hopefully we'll see less people taking those kinds of risks with their kids just for likes and to use them as props, because it's just not on.
I do agree with you, though. I do absolutely agree with that. Right, just the final actually, because I forgot about this. Was on the notes. No football, right? Hear me out, yeah. Hear me out. The most people.
I don't agree with sports ball following.
I'm saying we should like, oh yeah, let's be cheering. Like, obviously I do, and I get it, yeah, because it's now become blacks everywhere. They're not Brummies that are playing for Birmingham. It's a bunch of Africans. I am talking about, and obviously the sport itself has been taken over. LGBT nonsense. They're trying to push all this shit on us. But why we should be taking back the crown? They are our people. It's the most watched sport in the world and in Europe, and we should be attending games, not to watch. I don't give a shit if you want to do activism. Yeah, there are white people that mainly attend. You've seen the banners when we've done the banners over football games. How much publicity that gets on a European scale. Yeah, so that's all I'm saying. Instead of alienating, because I know a lot of nationalists just football fans are these, football fans are that. I'm a football fan.
It's frustrating though, isn't it? I mean, you see these men. They go, I see these videos of the football lads, and they'll start scrapping with other white men over, some African sports ball player, or for no reason whatsoever. The game's not even taken place; it could be before it, and they're smashing up towns and they're laying into one another, and they're risking prison sentences to do this. And yet, I'm like, your nation's being invaded. They're raping white kids on a mass scale. You are being attacked in every way, shape, or form by foreign peoples in your own home, and you won't do anything about that. But you'll go smash each other up over a game, and that becomes frustrating.
I know, and this is the sort of thing that needs to be said to them when you go to outside games, leafleting, getting banners across. You need to educate them and speak to them. They're our people, and they're very passionate people. And if they like to get into a fight, well, come on then, let's go and sort out all these people grooming our children.
There was a Football Lads Alliance, wasn't there? And they could turn out in huge numbers, the Football Lads Alliance, and then there was the Democratic Football Lads Alliance. But I think it's time they prioritize tribe over football. I think it's time that they actually started doing what is necessary for a future for their people. I mean, why keep fighting over such trivial and meaningless things when the most important thing you could be fighting for right now needs you?
Exactly. But do you not agree that we should be, attending football stadiums?
I don't believe that I've got a place doing that. I mean, I've got no interest in football. I think that is a male domain. There are some areas that are male domain.
Maybe not you, but I think that's what men should be doing.
It's where you go. You can have your sort of dark humor and banter and say things that would be sort of inappropriate in front of females, and that's the way that men bond. So you need those spaces. So I do think that nationalist men should try to persuade these football lads somewhat to start recognizing the threats that really matter.
Yeah, exactly. Like set up a little. I'm not doing anything till after my court case, but who knows in the future? Set up a little stall there outside the ground. Start speaking to them, hand out your leaflets, start talking to them.
How long have you got? Or do you have a trial date?
Well, my hearing's on the in March. I'm not going to give you the exact date actually. In March, just to plead, obviously not go in, and it'll go to trial, won't it? How long do you think that will take? Do you reckon that'll be about July maybe? Does it take a few months, I guess, to get to a trial?
Tends to be, they tend to try and move criminal cases along quicker than they do civil cases because, well, especially if you were being held on remand or anything like that. But at the moment, the courts seem incredibly slow. I have had malicious prosecutions brought against me, but at the time there were so many of them. I couldn't actually keep up with all the court dates. So, they were all over the place. They all got dropped with absolute discharges. But
interesting, but I don't know what's going to happen.
I'll go into that on another occasion. But good luck with that. I've just had another acquaintance who's just submitted a not guilty at the High Court, and we're going to see how that's going to go. I really do detest the persecution of white nationalists. It's so isolating for many, and not enough is being done.
Just demoralising, you know what I mean? Just going through all that crap, having all your house raided by scummy police, and it's just demoralising. And that's what they want to do, don't they? Demoralise you so you don't do any more activism.
A lot of the time, the process is the punishment, isn't it? A lot of people get no further action, but You know, they spend 2 years with these bullshit charges. You know, they arrest you, they bring you in for questioning, they trash your house, they take your devices, they get you suspended on no pay. You can't get another job, you know, you're struggling to pay your mortgage, and then they get social services involved. They target your family, they contact all of your acquaintances, start threatening them like, oh, you know, if you keep in contact with him, the same thing will happen to you. And you just, you know, and then eventually it's, oh, there's no further action. And it's, you know, after they've completely destroyed that person and made them a nervous wreck for 2 years, it's happening to a lot of people right now, and it's really bothering me. The introduction of the social services thing, I knew it was coming, but still deeply bothers me. The lengths in which these corrupt Marxists will go to is...
Yeah, I do want a favour off you, actually. I want to put you in touch with a girl, mate. I mean, you are aware of Ben Raymond, National Action?
I do know her, yes.
Oh, do you know her? Do you speak to her?
I have done on previous occasions. I mean, I think what they've done with Benjamin is
she's just done a 600-mile round trip.
Again, I mean, why? You know, prisoners do have a right to a family life, and often they can move people closer to where they're
been rejected. She's just had a letter about being rejected.
On what ground? Let's not do it on a live stream.
You speak to her, because I think, I just fell for it at the moment. She's got flipping 2 young kids, you know, one or two, I think 6 or 7, and having to drive all the way up there just for one night, you know. And I think it's absolute. They're targeting it. They followed her to school. Well, as soon as they drop the kids off, a boy off, the police are out there trying to question her and everything, like, and just harassing her all the time. She's actually in the process of suing them because they trashed the garage. They trashed her garage, because I think she said on the phone to Ben, because they recorded it, I think she said maybe something she feeling a bit suicidal. So they went round to check on her or something. They destroyed the garage.
Oh, they're not going down that whole route, are they? I mean, one of the ways in which police can persecute people is they claim that they have a cause for concern. Now, they don't have to tell you where this cause for concern came from, but if their concern is enough, they can break into your property, or they can just kidnap you off the street and shove you in a cell and give you no explanation whatsoever. I mean, this could be on your way to work. You could be on your way to an important appointment. I mean, this whole concern for your welfare bullshit is something that they pull quite often to harass, particularly female nationalists, or female targets, should I say, any sort of dissident whistleblower or persons that might be a problem for the state. I will definitely speak to her because, they say, it's quite lonely being persecuted. So I try to ensure that if anybody is suffering this, that I am as there as possible for them. I mean, often there isn't much that I can do, and I don't really believe that moral and emotional support does anything. So it bothers me that I can't.
It's another voice, you know what I mean? And you're quite smart in all this that's going on, and quite wise.
I'm going to look into getting him moved to be closer to home. There must be some sort of a legal route that we can go down for that. I'm pretty sure there will be. I've already read some law into that a while ago, but at that time, I mean, usually you have to settle into a prison for a certain amount of time, and then you can apply for a transfer on these bases. Oh, did I just click off? Oh, okay. I'm still here. Sorry, I clicked off. You know, usually they will move them if they're being nice. I mean, the only thing is that the prison would need to have the same services. So if you've got like de-radicalization centers inside the prisons, because I think there's a few prisons in the United Kingdom that have these de-radicalization services in the prisons, and that's where they tend to send the so-called right-wing extremists. But usually there will be one closer to their family, but they move them as far away as possible and then refuse to transfer them. Because ensuring white men can't see their kids is one of their priorities.
They want to split the family up, don't they?
Yeah. I mean, this is like one of my major concerns is, you know, the targeting of nationalist families and the vulnerabilities of having dependents is something that very much concerns me. I mean, my heart goes out to people like her that really, you know, she's just been left on her own with 2 small kids. Husband's been maliciously prosecuted under obscure legislation that's applied selectively. And then it's like you've got a father that's not going to see his kids grow up, only see them briefly in visits. She's going to be living without her husband. The kids are growing up without a father. And what for? Because he opposed the genocide of our nation.
Exactly.
It's just... I'd rather be out fighting these things for the good of other people than at home making sandwiches or, you know, not being of much use in any other regard.
It reminds me, get in the kitchen and do me a sandwich, will you, Paris?
I'm very good at making sandwiches. I'm very good at making sandwiches, but it doesn't mean that I need to be a full-time sandwich maker.
Absolutely. Right, should we leave it there? It's been nearly 2 hours. It's been a fantastic show. Hope everyone watching enjoyed it. If you missed the last episode, I done it was with the Highland Division lads. Get into a bit of the details with them. If you want to watch it, it's on the channel. So just go and check that out. Hopefully got a couple of more guests coming up soon, guys. But yeah, we'll go over to Kate. Anything you want to plug? Any final words? The dance floor is yours.
Not really. You can find me at Bubba Kate Paris on most nationalist social media. I think I'm still on Gab. My YouTube channel is probably about to get erased. I've had like three warnings for hate speech in the last couple of days. So really, it's just the Bubba Kate versus the State round 2 on Telegram, where you might be able to contact me. At the moment, I'm really going to be quite busy with litigation and setting up of the White Indigenous Rights Alliance. I am going to be recruiting soon, though. So if you're interested in learning about solutions, the solutions that I might be implementing, do just give that channel a follow. Otherwise, no, not really got much else to say today.
Okay, thank you for that. I will leave the links of your channel in the pinned comment on the YouTube channel and on Odyssey as well. So, guys, thank you for watching. Hope you all have a great evening. Peace out.
Where do I leave?